The relentless sun of Hesperus beat down, mercilessly in a wash on the red desert, turning the landscape into a shimmering mirage of heat and dust. Cole wiped the sweat from his brow, the weathered lines on his face deepening as he squinted at the horizon. 50 years of life had taught him to read the desert like others read books, and something was disturbing the perfect flatness where sky met earth. He finished checking his water traps, precious moisture collectors that meant survival in this harsh environment, and secured the canteens to his belt. The day's collection had been meager, barely a liter of cloudy liquid. Another week of this and he'd have to move camp, again following the water deeper into the Badlands where the predators grew more numerous and the terrain more treacherous. Cole's gnarled fingers worked the sand from the trap's filter. Resources were too precious to waste on this forsaken planet. Every drop of water, every scrap of cloth, every bit of metal had value beyond measure. The company had abandoned Hesperus decades ago when the mining operation proved less profitable than expected, leaving behind those too stubborn, too poor, or too damaged to return to civilization. Cole fell into all three categories. Something glinted on the horizon, a flash of reflected sunlight where no reflection should be. Cole froze, his senses sharpening. 20 years on Hesperus had honed his survival instincts to a razor's edge. His hand moved instinctively to the knife at his belt, the weapon's handle worn smooth from years of use. The distant flash came again, more pronounced this time, too regular to be natural. Cole gathered his supplies and began walking, his footsteps silent against the hard-packed sand. As a former scout for the colonial military, he'd learned to move without sound long before setting foot on Hesperus. The closer he got, the clearer the image became. Wreckage. A ship had gone down, leaving a kilometer-long scar in the desert floor. Not a local vessel, something big, something from off-world. Debris glinted in the sunlight, scattered across the red sand like discarded toys. The impact had occurred recently. The sand hadn't yet reclaimed the metal, perhaps within the last solar cycle. Cole approached cautiously, scanning for signs of survivors or scavengers. The latter were often more dangerous than any natural predator on Hesperus. He circled the wreckage, noting the Earth Botanical Research Division insignia on a section of hull. A scientific vessel, then. Unusual in this sector. Movement caught his eye, a figure lying near the edge of the crash site. Woman, young, perhaps in her late 20s, sprawled face down in the sand. Her research uniform was torn and scorched, the division patch still visible on the shoulder. Her breathing came in shallow, desperate gasps. Dehydration would claim her. Within hours, Cole surveyed the area once more before approaching. No other survivors visible. No signs of marauders yet, though they would come soon enough. A crash this size would draw attention from across the Badlands. He knelt beside the woman, gently turning her over. Her face was sunburned and blistered, her lips cracked from dehydration. Blood had dried in her hair, suggesting a head injury during the crash. Cole reached for his canteen carefully, lifting her head to give her water. The liquid had barely touched her lips when her eyes flew open, wild, panicked, and filled with absolute terror. She jerked away with surprising strength for someone so weakened. "Don't touch me," she gasped, voice raw and cracked. Please go away for your own safety. Cole remained where he was, confusion etched on his weathered face. In all his years on Hesperus, he'd never encountered such a reaction. Most people found in the desert begged for help, not rejected it. You need water, he said simply, his voice low and graveled from years of disuse. Or you'll die here. Better me than you, she whispered, dragging herself backward across the sand, maintaining distance between them. You don't understand what's happened to me. Cole set the canteen down and pushed it toward her with the toe of his boot. Drink, then we talk. She hesitated, then reached for the canteen with trembling hands. She drank deeply, desperately, water spilling down her chin and neck. When she finished, some clarity returned to her eyes. My ship, she said, glancing back at the wreckage. We crashed 3 days ago, research vessel. I'm the only one, her voice broke. Your name, Cole asked. Elena. Botanical researcher, specialized in toxic flora. She looked at her hands with something like horror. You need to leave me, please. Desert will kill you by nightfall, Cole said, gesturing to the vast red expanse surrounding them. Temperature drops 70 degrees after dark. Predators come out, wouldn't last in hours. You don't understand, tears welled in her eyes. 3 days ago I was collecting samples in the northern ridge. There was this flower, beautiful scarlet, like a scorpion's tail. We called it scorpion's tear. I touched it without gloves. She closed her eyes, remembering. It changed me. My skin. Everything I touch, living things, they die instantly. Cole's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. The desert bred strange tales and madness, especially in those facing death. He'd seen it before, the mind creating fantastic stories as reality slipped away. You're dehydrated, confused, he said, reaching for his pack to get more supplies. No, Elena shouted, crawling further away. I'm telling the truth, watch. Before Cole could respond, a small creature scampered across them, sand between them. A blue-furred desert fox, one of the native species that had adapted to Hesperus. It approached Elena, curious about the newcomer. No, she whispered, trying to back away, but the creature was too quick. It brushed against her ankle, its blue fur stark against her skin. For one moment, nothing happened. Then, as if struck by lightning, the animal convulsed violently. Its small body went rigid, then collapsed into the sand, twitching once before going completely still. Cole stared at the dead animal, then at Elena. Her eyes were filled with tears. But there was no surprise in them, only the dull acceptance of someone who had seen this happen before. Now do you believe me? She asked quietly. Cole stood motionless, processing what he'd witnessed. In his 50 years he'd seen death in countless forms, but nothing like this. His mind raced through possibilities, hallucinations, tricks, coincidences. But the dead animal at her feet offered a grim reality he couldn't deny. How many others? He asked. 4 crewmates, she whispered before. I understood what was happening. They tried to help me when I collapsed. After touching the flower, she couldn't finish. Cole glanced back toward the wreckage. Others on the ship. All dead, some from the crash, others. She swallowed hard. The captain touched me when he pulled me from my station during the crash. He died instantly, the pilot too. Navigator made it out, but when I woke up disoriented, he tried to check my injuries. Her voice trailed off. The doctor realized something was wrong. Isolated me, ran tests. Said the plant's toxin had somehow bonded with my cellular structure. My skin secretes a potent neurotoxin. Now, he was trying to develop a countermeasure when she looked down at her hands when he accidentally brushed against my arm while collecting a blood sample. Cole surveyed the horizon, calculating distances and dangers. His cabin was a 3-day journey across the desert, the settlement beyond it. Perhaps 7 days, she wouldn't survive. Alone, especially not with marauders. Likely to discover the crash site soon. Can't leave you, he said finally. Can't touch you, difficult situation. Elena laughed bitterly. There's no solution, just go please. I've caused enough death. Cole ignored her, his mind working on the problem. From his pack he pulled a length of rope, sturdy, weathered from years of use. He tied one into his belt, then tossed the other end toward her, careful to maintain distance. Tie it around your waist, he instructed. We'll keep our distance, I know where. There's shelter, water, maybe someone who can help. Elena stared at the rope, then at Cole. Why would you risk this? You don't know me. Doesn't matter, Cole replied. I know what happens to people alone in this desert. His eyes hardened momentarily, hinting at memories best left buried. Not about knowing you, about what's right. With trembling hands, Elena secured the rope around her waist. If I kill you, she said, her voice barely audible, I won't be able to live with it. Then we'll both be careful, Cole replied, picking up his pack. Stay 10 paces back, desert's going to get hotter before it gets cooler. Need to move. As they prepared to leave, Cole approached the crash site, careful to give Elena a wide berth. He rummaged through the accessible debris, salvaging what he could, a medkit, some ration packs, a multi-tool. Most clear's throat of the ship was buried beneath sand already, the desert reclaiming what didn't belong. Anything I should know, he asked, nodding toward the eastern horizon. About your research mission. Elena wiped her eyes. We were mapping Hesperus's flora, looking for pharmaceutical potential. The company thought some of the native plants might have adaptive properties that could benefit terraforming projects. Company sent you here knowing the dangers. They said the area was uninhabited, no reports of marauders or hostile wildlife. She looked around at the desolate landscape. They were wrong about a lot of things. Cole grunted. Companies usually are. He shouldered his pack, newly laden with salvage. Follow me 10 paces back. Desert ridge to the east, then the Badlands. Hard country, but I know the paths. They began their strange procession across the red sands of Hesperus, Cole leading, Elena following, connected by lifeline that also served as a barrier between them. The sun climbed higher, beating down with merciless intensity as they headed toward the distant mountains where Cole had made his home. By mid-afternoon, the heat had become nearly unbearable. The air shimmered above the sand, creating phantoms that danced on the horizon. Elena stumbled, the rope going taut as she fell to her knees. Cole turned, careful to maintain his distance. Need to rest. Just a moment, she gasped, her face flushed with heat despite the protective cloth Cole had given her and used to wrap around her head. He surveyed their surroundings, flat desert in all directions, no shelter from the punishing sun. Can't stop here, need to reach the rock formations before nightfall. Elena nodded weakly and forced herself to stand. Her scientific training hadn't prepared her for the brutal realities of Hesperus. The planet's atmosphere was thinner than Earth's, the radiation levels higher. The temperature swings more extreme. Without proper equipment or acclimation, humans could survive for only short periods outside sheltered environments. How much further? She asked, taking a tentative step forward. 2 hours, maybe 3. Cole pointed to a dark line on the horizon. Ridge there, better terrain, some shade. They continued their trek, each step a battle against heat and exhaustion. Cole set a pace that pushed Elena to her limits but remained within her capabilities. Too slow and night would catch them exposed on the open desert. Too fast and she would collapse from exertion. Tell me about the toxin, Cole said, breaking the silence that had fallen between them. How does it work? Elena welcomed the distraction from her physical discomfort. It's a neurotoxin, but unlike anything we've documented before, it doesn't just block neural pathways. Like most toxins, it overloads them. Complete nervous system failure within seconds of contact. And it's in your skin now. Yes, the doctor thought the toxin somehow rewrote my cellular structure. My sweat glands now produce it continuously. She paused, then added, he said it might not be permanent, that my body might eventually purge it or develop immunity. How long? He didn't know. Could be weeks, could be years. Her voice broke slightly. Could be never. Cole nodded, processing this information. Still gives us something to work toward. Us? Elena questioned. Figure of speech, Cole replied, but something in his tone suggested otherwise. They reached the ridge as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert floor. The terrain changed abruptly, flat sand, giving way to jagged rock formations and narrow ravines. Cole led them confidently through this maze, following paths invisible to untrained eyes. Careful here, he warned as they navigated a particularly treacherous section. Loose rocks, watch your footing. The rope between them went taut occasionally as Elena struggled with the difficult terrain. Cole was patient, pausing when necessary, offering guidance without condescension. Despite his gruff exterior, there was a gentleness to him that surprised her, a contrast to his weathered appearance and evident capability for violence. How long have you been on Hesperus? She asked during one of their brief rests. 20 years, give or take. Alone all that time, all this time? Cole's expression remained impassive. Mostly, some contact with the settlement, occasional trading with the Viridian, the indigenous people, the green-skinned natives. Elena's interest was piqued. Our briefings mentioned them but said they were reclusive, hostile to outsiders. They are to most. Something like pride flickered across Cole's face. Not to me. Earned their trust, learned their ways. How? Cole's eyes hardened. Story for another time. Need to find shelter before dark. He led them to a small canyon as the second sun began to set. The walls provided protection from the wind and prying eyes, while a natural overhang created a defensive position. Cole set about making camp with practiced efficiency, gathering spars, vegetation for a small fire, arranging, stones for a wind barrier, preparing their meager rations. Night fell quickly on Hesperus, the temperature dropping dramatically as the twin suns disappeared below the horizon. They sat on opposite sides of the fire, the flames creating a natural barrier. Between them, the rope still connected them, though slack now as they rested. "You never told me your full name," Elena said, breaking the comfortable silence that had developed. "Cole," he replied, not looking up from his work. "Just Cole." Elena studied him in the firelight, the deep lines etched into his face, the silver threading through his dark hair, the way he moved with practiced efficiency. His hands were calloused and scarred, telling stories his words didn't. "Why are you out here, Cole, in the middle of nowhere alone?" He continued, preparing the food for several moments before answering. "Quiet here." "That's it, you crossed galaxies for quiet." Cole's hand stilled momentarily. "Some noises follow you, no matter how far you go." He glanced up at her. "War noises." Understanding dawned on Elena's face. "You were a soldier," he nodded once, then returned to his task. "Which war?" she asked. "Does it matter?" His voice had an edge now. "They're all the same, different planets, different reasons, same blood." Elena fell silent, watching the flames dance between them. After a while, Cole handed her a plate, sliding it across the sand rather than passing it directly. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Not just for the food, for everything. Most people would have left me there. Most people haven't seen what I've seen." He took a bite of his meal. "When you've watched enough people die, saving one seems important, even when that one person is dangerous." Cole's eyes met hers across the fire. "Everyone's dangerous in the right circumstances." They ate in silence for a while, the desert night growing colder around them. The stars emerged, brilliant and unfamiliar to Elena, constellations she'd studied but never seen with her own eyes until arriving on Hesperus. Without the glare of the sun, the night sky revealed its full splendor, countless stars filling the darkness. A howl echoed across the desert, followed by another closer. Cole's head snapped up, his posture suddenly alert. "What is that?" Elena asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Sand wolves," Cole replied, reaching for his bow. Blue pack hunters usually avoid humans, but when hungry, they sound close. They are. Cole strung his bow with practiced efficiency, must have smelled our food or the dead foxes sent on you. The howls came again, closer still. In the darkness beyond their campfire, blue shapes moved, sleek predatory forms, circling just beyond the light. "They're surrounding us," Elena whispered. Cole nodded, knocking an arrow. "Stay by the fire, they fear flames." A large wolf lunged from the darkness, blur of blue fur and gleaming teeth. Cole's arrow caught it mid-leap, sending it crashing to the ground. The other wolves retreated temporarily, yipping and snarling in the darkness. "Will they attack again?" Elena asked. "Yes." Cole retrieved another arrow. "They're starving, droughts made game scarce." "What do we do?" Cole's eyes scanned the darkness, counting shapes. "Need higher ground." He nodded toward a rocky outcropping a few meters away. "There, climb, I'll cover you." Elena hesitated. "The rope, leave it, go." Now while they're regrouping, she scrambled toward the rocks as Cole released another arrow into the darkness, earning a yelp of pain. The wolves, emboldened by hunger, began to close in again. And GT snorts. And GT. Elena climbed the rocky formation, her hands finding purchase on the rough stone. From below she heard the sounds of combat snarls, the thud of Cole's bow, his grunt of exertion, then a cry of pain. Cole, she called out, peering down. In the firelight she saw him hacking toward the rock's bow, abandoned knife in hand. Blood streaked his leg where a wolf had caught him. And GT clears throat. And GT, 3 dead wolves lay around the campfire, but more were coming. Cole reached the rocks and began to climb one-handed, his knife clenched between his teeth. The wolves leaped at his dangling legs, jaws snapping just short of his boots. Elena reached down instinctively to help him, then jerked back, remembering her lethal touch. Stay back, Cole warned, hauling himself up the final meter to safety. They huddled on the flat top of the rock formation, watching as the wolves circled below, occasionally leaping up the sides before sliding back down. Cole examined his leg wound, a deep gash that bled freely. How bad is it? Elena asked. Not arterial, he replied, tearing a strip from his shirt to bind the wound, but deep. Need to clean it properly when we're safe. This is my fault, Elena said. If you'd left me at the crash site, my gear would have died there. Cole tied off the bandage with a practiced motion. No point thinking that way. Below them, the wolves continued to circle, settling in for a siege. One particularly large animal, the pack leader, stared up at them with unnerving intelligence, as if calculating their chances. They're not leaving, Elena observed. No, and Cole glanced at the horizon where the first hint of dawn was still hours away. They'll wait, hunting instinct. We can't stay here all night. You're injured and it's freezing. Cole nodded, his mind working on the problem. He surveyed their small sanctuary, the surrounding terrain, the position of the wolves. Need a distraction, he said finally. Drive them away from the rocks long enough to retrieve our supplies. How? Cole looked at her for a long moment. Your condition could use it. Elena's eyes widened. No, I won't use this curse to kill more creatures. Not about killing, about survival. Cole pointed to her boots. Remove your boot. Throw it to the far side of the camp. Wolves will investigate, curious by nature. First one to touch it dies, others will be spooked, retreat temporarily. That's horrible, Alicia, that's survival. Cole's voice was firm but not unkind. Life and death out here, no room for anything else. Elena looked down at the circling predators, then at Cole's bandaged leg. Slowly she unlaced her boot and removed it. Are you sure this will work? No, Cole admitted, but better than freezing up here. Elena took a deep breath, then threw her Mabuta as far as she could. It landed with a soft thud on the opposite side of their camp. As Cole had predicted, several wolves immediately broke away to investigate, including the pack leader. They watched as the alpha wolf approached the boot cautiously, sniffing it from a distance before finally nudging it with its snout. The effect was instantaneous. The wolf's body seized, then collapsed. The other wolves backed away, confused and alarmed by their leader's sudden death. Now, Cole said, beginning his descent. Quickly, they scrambled down the rocks. Cole moving with surprising agility despite his injury. They retrieved their packs and the remaining supplies. Cole, snatching up his bow and quiver, the surviving wolves, unsettled by their leader's mysterious death, kept their distance, watching warily from the shadows. "We keep moving," Cole said, wincing as he put weight on his injured leg. "Dawn in 4 hours, need to reach the ridge. Before then, you're in no condition to travel," Elena protested. "No choice." Cole retied the rope between them. "Wolves will regroup, follow our scent. Need to reach safer ground." They set off into the night, leaving the campfire burning behind them. Cole limped noticeably, but maintained a steady pace, his face set against the pain. Elena followed, watching him with growing concern. Occasional howls echoed in the distance, confirming Cole's prediction. The wolves were following. "Talk to me," Cole said unexpectedly. After an hour of silent travel, distraction helps. "About what?" "Anything. Your research. What brought you to Hesperus? Specifically." Elena hesitated, then began to speak, her voice helping to mask the sound of their footsteps and keep Cole focused. Through his pain, Hesperus shouldn't have plant life at all, she explained. The soil composition, the radiation levels from the sun, it should be completely barren. But something here adapted, evolved. Mechanisms we've never seen before. Like your flower, the toxic one. Scorpion's tear, yes, it's not even the strangest specimen that we found. There's a fungal network in the north canyons that communicates through electrical impulses, almost like a primitive nervous system, and a tree-like organism that survives by extracting minerals directly from bedrock. As she spoke, they climbed steadily, leaving the flat desert for increasingly rocky terrain. The path narrowed, forcing them to navigate carefully, especially with Cole's injury slowing them down. Howls grew more distant, the wolves reluctant to follow them into the unfamiliar territory. The second day of travel brought them into rockier terrain, the flat desert, giving way to jagged formations and narrow passes. Cole led them through with confidence, navigating paths invisible to untrained eyes. The rope between them grew taut at times, as Elena struggled with the difficult terrain. "How much further?" she called, scrambling over a particularly challenging outcropping. "Another day," Cole answered without turning. "Maybe less if we push." "You're angry," Elena said, following him. "Companies," Cole replied, the single word loaded with decades of bitterness. "Always the same. Take what isn't theirs, call it progress." They reached a flat outcropping as the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon. Cole stopped, his face pale from exertion and blood loss. Without a word, he sank to the ground, his injured leg finally giving out. "We need to rest," Elena said, kneeling as close as she dared. "Let me see your wound." Cole didn't argue, which concerned her more than the injury itself. He rarely admitted weakness. He extended his leg, allowing her to examine the makeshift bandage now soaked through with blood. "It needs cleaning and proper dressing," she said. "The med kit from my ship has supplies." Cole nodded, removing his pack and retrieving the salvaged med kit. He tossed it to Elena, who opened it and surveyed the contents. "I can talk you through it," Elena said, "but you'll have to do the actual treatment yourself." Cole nodded again, his face grim with pain. and GT, clears throat. And GT. Under Elena's direction, he cleaned the wound with antiseptic, applied a coagulant powder, and wrapped it in fresh bandages. The process was agonizing, but he endured it without complaint. That should hold until we reach your cabin, Elena said when they finished. But you need to rest. 2 hours, Cole conceded, then we move. They set up a small camp on the outcropping, the elevated position, providing some security against further wolf attacks. As Cole rested, Elena kept watch, her eyes scanning the landscape below. The desert they had crossed stretched out like a red ocean, their footprints already vanishing in the morning wind. Something caught her eye, a glint of metal on the distant horizon. Cole, she said, her voice tight, I think someone's following us. He was beside her in an instant, careful to maintain distance, his eyes scanning the horizon. His face hardened at what he saw. Marauders, he said, sand skimmers. What do they want? Anything they can take, salvage, supplies. His eyes shifted to her. Survivors, Elena felt cold despite the heat. From my ship, Cole nodded, crash-like. That word travels, scavengers come, looking for tech, medical supplies. What do we do? Cole studied the approaching vehicles, still distant but moving fast across the desert floor. Move faster, harder to track in the rocks. Despite his injury, Cole led them deeper into the rocky terrain, following paths invisible to untrained eyes. The rope between them grew taut at times. As Elena struggled to keep up, Cole moved with the determination of a man who knew what pursuit meant in the Badlands of Hesperus. Who are these people? She asked as they navigated a particularly treacherous section. Warren's crew, Cole replied, grimacing as he put weight on his injured leg. Worst of the marauders, ex-miners. Mostly, when the company pulled out, they stayed, prey on anything that moves through this sector. And Warren, smart, brutal, territorial. Cole helped her navigate a difficult passage, extending his bow for her to grab rather than his hand. Considers Hesperus his hunting ground. Why would they be so interested in us? Cole's face grew grim. Ship like yours has valuable parts, medicine. But once they realize what you can do, he left the implications hanging in the air. You think they'd use me as a weapon? Elena said, the realization dawning with horrifying clarity. Wouldn't be the first time Warren weaponized something. He shouldn't. Cole led them around a sharp bend in the path. 2 years ago, he captured a Verdani shaman, forced him to lead Warren's crew to sacred sites for looting. Shaman died trying to escape. You know him personally? Elena asked, noting the way Cole spoke of Warren. A shadow crossed Cole's face. Once, long time ago. Before you were enemies. Was never friends. Cole resumed climbing. Both worked for the company, different departments. He was security, I was survey team. Watched him execute a family of Verdani for trespassing on a company claim. His voice hardened. Their land. Originally, before we came. What happened? Reported him. Company did nothing. Week later, my team was ambushed in the field. Everyone killed except me. Cole's face was expressionless as he recounted the story. Official report said Verdani attack. But I saw Warren's men leaving. Company covered it up. Easier than addressing the problem. That's why you stayed when everyone else left, Elena realized you were hiding. At first, Cole helped her over a difficult section of rock, then made peace with the Verdani. Learned their ways, became something else, not company man, not marauder, just survivor. The path narrowed, forcing them to navigate single file through tight passages where the red rock rose on either side like ancient walls. The sound of engines grew louder, echoing through the stone corridors. They're getting closer, Elena warned. Glancing back, almost to the hiding place, Cole assured everyone. Voices carried in the still desert air. Harsh, eager voices calling to each other as they discovered Cole and Elena's trail. Footsteps approached, cautious but not particularly stealthy. Cole pulled them into a narrow crevice, barely visible. The rock face, the space widened inside. Opening into a small cave, he quickly untied the rope from his waist. "Stay here," he whispered. "Don't move." "Where are you going?" Elena asked, panic rising in her voice. "To buy us time." Before she could protest, Cole slipped out of the cave, moving with surprising agility despite his wounds. Elena pressed herself against the rock wall, listening to the sounds outside. The engines growing silent, boots on stone, men calling to each other. Then came new sounds, a shout of surprise, the thud of bodies falling, curses and confusion. She recognized the sounds of combat, of ambush. Cole was fighting. A scream echoed through the canyon, a cry of agony abruptly silenced, then another. Elena shuddered, imagining Cole's knife finding its mark. For all his quiet demeanor, he was clearly a man familiar with killing. Minutes stretched like hours as Elena waited in the darkness, helpless. The sounds outside grew more distant, suggesting Cole was drawing the marauders away from her hiding place. Then came silence, more terrifying than the noise of battle. She didn't know how long she waited, heart pounding, before hearing footsteps approaching the cave entrance. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, prepared for the worst. Cole appeared, silhouetted against the entrance. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, and he moved with a pronounced limp, but he was alive. "3 of them," he said, retrieving the rope. Rest followed, won't be long before they regroup. "Are you hurt?" Elena asked, seeing how he favored his right side. Reopened the leg wound, took a hit to the ribs. He tied the rope around his waist again. "Need to move. Know a place they won't follow." They emerged from the cave into the late afternoon sun. Cole led them on a new path, steeper and more treacherous than before. Elena struggled to keep up, acutely aware that every delay put them both in greater danger. "You killed them?" she asked, clear's throat as they climbed. "Had to." Cole's voice was flat, emotionless. "They wouldn't have shown mercy." "How many are left?" "At least 8. Plus Warren." Cole paused to catch his breath, his face pale from exertion and blood loss. "He usually stays back, sends others first." As they continued their ascent, the terrain grew increasingly difficult. Loose rocks gave way beneath their feet, sending small avalanches down the steep slope. The rope between them proved essential, allowing Cole to guide Elena through the most challenging passages. "There," Cole said, pointing to a narrow ledge high above them. "Cave system. Complex, easy to defend." "Can we make it?" Elena asked, eyeing the treacherous climb ahead. "No choice." Cole began ascending, each movement clearly causing him pain. Come carefully. They climbed in silence, focusing all their energy on the task at hand. Cole paused frequently, his strength failing as blood loss and exertion took their toll. Elena could see he was pushing himself beyond normal human endurance. You need to rest, she insisted after a particularly difficult section. Later, Cole's voice was strained, his breathing labored. Almost there. They reached the ledge as the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the canyon. Below, Cole collapsed against the rock wall, his face gray with exhaustion. Elena knelt beside him, careful to maintain distance. Let me see your wounds, she said, her voice gentle but insistent. Cole nodded weakly, too drained to argue. He removed his shirt, revealing a body marked by scars, some old and faded, others fresh and angry. The wolf bite on. His leg had reopened, blood seeping through the bandage, a new injury marred his side, a deep laceration where one of the marauders had caught him with a blade. Under Elena's guidance, Cole cleaned and dressed his wounds using the remaining medical supplies. The process was slow and painful, his hands trembling with fatigue. You've lost too much blood, Elena said, watching him struggle. You need proper medical attention. Not an option. Cole finished bandaging his side. Have to keep moving. Reach the cabin tomorrow. You won't make it to tomorrow if you don't rest now. Cole met her eyes, a flicker of surprise crossing his face at her vehemence. After a moment he nodded. Which hours? Then we move before dawn. They retreated deeper into the cave, finding a chamber large enough to set up camp but small enough to defend if necessary. Cole positioned himself near the entrance, his bow within reach despite his weakened state. Sleep, he told Elena. I'll keep watch. You need rest more than I do, she protested. Can't risk both sleeping. Too dangerous. Then I'll take first watch, Elena insisted. You're barely conscious as it is. Cole hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. 2 hours, then wake me. He settled against the cave wall, his body surrendering to exhaustion almost immediately. Elena watched him sleep, noting how the hard lines of his face softened slightly in repose. Despite his gruff exterior and violent capabilities, there was something fundamentally decent about Cole, a core of honor that had survived years of hardship. She kept vigil as night fell, listening to the sounds of the desert beyond their shelter. The marauders would still be searching, but the complex terrain made tracking difficult, especially in darkness. They had bought themselves time, but Elena knew was merely a reprieve, not a solution. Her thoughts turned to her condition, the toxic touch that had claimed so many lives already. The ship's doctor had believed it might be temporary, that her body could eventually purge the toxin, but he had died before developing any treatment, leaving Elena with nothing but hope and caution. She looked at her hands in the dim light filtering into the cave. They appeared normal. No visible sign of the death they carried. Yet a single touch could stop a heart. Instantly, the power was terrifying, but for the first time since the crash, Elena began to consider that it might also be useful. Cole stirred in his sleep, grimacing as his movements aggravated his wounds. Elena resisted the instinct to comfort him, the rope between them a constant reminder of the barrier that must remain. After 2 hours, she gently called his name, waking him as promised. Cole opened his eyes, instantly alert. Despite his injuries. Any signs of pursuit? He asked, sitting up carefully. None, Elena replied. I think we've lost them for now. Cole nodded, though his expression remained skeptical. Warren's persistent, won't give up easily. Why is he so determined? Surely there are easier targets on Hesperus. It's personal now. Cole checked his weapons, ensuring they were ready. I've killed his men, embarrassed him. He won't stop. What will we do when we reach your cabin? Elena asked. We can't hide forever. One problem at a time, Cole replied. Rest now, I'll wake you before dawn. Elena settled against the opposite wall. The distance between them a physical manifestation of her isolation. As exhaustion claimed her, her last thought was of Cole's determination to keep her safe, a kindness she hadn't expected in this harsh world. Dawn broke over Hesperus, painting the red landscape in gold and amber. Cole and Elena had traveled through the night, navigating by starlight, putting distance between themselves and their pursuers. Now they stood at the entrance to a narrow canyon, a natural fortress with high walls and a single approach. This is where you want to make our stand? Elena asked, surveying the terrain. Cole nodded. Bottleneck, they can't come all at once. He looked worse than the previous day, his face ashen, movement stiff. From his injuries, the bandage on his leg was soaked through with fresh blood, and he winced with each step. Without proper medical attention, infection would set in soon. And when they do come, what's your plan? Then, you have a bow, a spear, and a knife. They have whatever weapons they salvaged from my ship. Had worse odds, Cole replied. Beginning to prepare the space, he gathered stones, positioning them as crude barriers. From his pack he produced a handful of arrows, each meticulously crafted, the shafts straight, the fletching precise. Elena watched him work, feeling useless and dangerous simultaneously. I could help if no, Cole cut her off. Distance is our only advantage with you. Stay back. She fell silent, understanding the truth in his words. As capable as she might be, her proximity to Cole posed a greater danger than any benefit her assistance might provide. The morning progressed, the sun climbing higher as Cole transformed the canyon entrance into a defensible position. He worked methodically, conserving energy, every movement purposeful. Elena marveled at his efficiency, the legacy of military training and years of survival. How did you end up here? She asked as he took a brief rest. Of all the places in the galaxy, why Hesperus? Cole drank from his canteen before answering. Remote, harsh, few questions. He looked around at the red landscape. And beautiful in its way. Beautiful, Elena looked skeptical. It's desolate, honest, Cole corrected. Desert. Doesn't lie, doesn't pretend to be something it's not. He returned to his work. After war, that matters. Which side were you on? Elena asked hesitantly. In the war, I mean. Cole's hand stilled, started on the right side, or thought so, realized later there wasn't one. What happened? Final campaign. Planet called Araxis. Mining colony declared independence. Company sent us to restore order. Found unarmed civilians instead of rebels. His voice remained flat, but his eyes betrayed the pain of remembrance. Some of us refused orders, mutinied. Others didn't. Battle turned into massacre. Both sides. You fought your own people. To protect innocents. Yes. Cole tested the draw of his bow, checking. For weaknesses, court-martialed after. Dishonorably discharged, couldn't go. Home came here instead. Before Elena could respond, a sound reached them, the distant hum of engines, growing steadily louder. They found our trail, Cole said, retrieving his bow. Get back all the way to the canyon. Whoa. Elena retreated as instructed. The rope, between them drawn taut as she positioned herself as far from the entrance as possible. Cole took position behind his makeshift barrier, an arrow knocked but not drawn. The engines grew louder, then cut off. Voices carried in the still desert air. Men discussing strategy, laughing, confident in their superior numbers. Footsteps approached, cautious but not particularly stealthy. A voice called out, echoing against the canyon walls. We know you're in there, old man, you. And whatever you're protecting, make it easy on yourselves, come out. Now. Cole remained still, silent. Last chance, the voice called again. Warren doesn't like waiting. When no response came, the first marauder appeared at the canyon entrance, a burly man with a salvage pistol in hand. He took 2 steps into the canyon before Cole's arrow found his throat. He fell without a sound. Shouts of alarm rose from outside. A second man rushed in, firing wildly. Cole's next arrow took him in the chest. He stumbled backward, falling at the feet of his companions. Surround the canyon, someone shouted. Find another way in. Cole glanced back at Elena. There is no other way, he assured her. Quietly. Minutes passed in tense silence. Cole remained at his position, another arrow ready. Elena could see the strain in his posture, the concentration in his weathered face. A stone clattered into the canyon, drawing Cole's attention momentarily. In that split second, 3 marauders rushed the entrance together, using the distraction to close the distance. Cole's arrow found one, but the other 2 were upon him before he could knock. Another. He abandoned the bow, drawing his knife. In one fluid motion, meeting their charge with the calculated violence of a veteran warrior. Elena watched in horror as Cole fought. His movements precise and brutal, but outnumbered, he dispatched one attacker with a swift thrust to the ribs, but the other caught him with a glancing blow to the shoulder. Cole staggered, recovered, and drove his knife into the man's neck. 4 men down, but Cole was bleeding from his shoulder and breathing hard. His injured leg threatened to buckle. With each step, an outside Warren was running out of patience. Enough games. The voice was different. Now authoritative, cold. Warren himself burned them out. Cole's eyes widened. He scrambled back toward Elena as the first flaming projectile arced into the canyon, a makeshift firebomb that exploded against the rock wall, spreading burning fuel across the ground. They're trying to smoke us out, Cole explained, wincing as he examined his wounded shoulder. Or cook us alive. Another firebomb flew in, then another. The temperature in the canyon rose rapidly as flames licked up the walls, consuming the sparse vegetation and filling the space with thick smoke. We can't stay here, Elena coughed, the smoke burning her lungs. Cole's face was grim as he assessed their dwindling options. No. What do we do? He looked at her, then at his bleeding shoulder, then at the canyon entrance, where more marauders would surely be waiting. His expression changed subtly. The look of a man arriving at a decision he'd been avoiding. We use what we have, he said quietly. Elena stared at him, uncomprehending at first, then understanding dawned, bringing with it a wave of horror. No, absolutely not. Only advantage we haven't used. I won't be a weapon, she protested. I won't be responsible for more deaths. Already responsible for mine if we do. Nothing, Cole countered, his voice steady despite the dire situation. Choice isn't between killing and not killing, it's between who dies. Another firebomb crashed into the canyon. Closer this time, the heat was becoming unbearable, the smoke thickening with each passing second. There has to be another way, Elena insisted, even as desperation crept into her voice. Cole shook his head. Sometimes there isn't. Before Elena could argue further, a figure appeared at the canyon entrance. Tall, imposing, backlit by the desert sun. Even in silhouette, his authority was evident. Warren, Cole murmured. The Marauder leader stepped into the canyon, flanked by two of his men. Unlike Snorts, his followers, he moved with calculated precision, eyes scanning every shadow, every potential threat. He spotted Cole and Elena against the back wall and smiled, a cold expression devoid of humor. Quite a chase you've led us on, old man, Warren called, his voice carrying easily over the crackling flames. All for what? A woman you can't even touch. He laughed. Oh yes, we've been watching. Curious arrangement you have. Cole shifted slightly, positioning himself between Warren and Elena, despite the rope still connecting them. She's infected, Cole said, his voice carrying none of the fear or exhaustion he must have felt. Contagious, touch means death. Warren's smile widened. Is that so? How convenient. He took another step forward, unbothered by the flames licking at the canyon walls. Then you won't mind if we take her off your hands? Someone with such a unique condition could be valuable to the right buyers. She's not for sale, Cole replied, his hand tightening on his knife. Everything on Hesperus is for sale, old man. You should know that by now. Warren gestured to his men, who began to spread out, moving to flank Cole and Elena, though I admit I'm curious. Why risk your life for her? What's she to you? Cole didn't answer. His eyes were measuring distances, angles, searching for any advantage in their deteriorating situation. No matter, Warren continued. You've killed 5 of my men. That demands payment with startling speed. Warren drew a sleek pistol, military grade, far superior to the salvaged weapons his men carried, and fired. The shot echoed through the canyon as Cole lurched backward, a bloom of red spreading across his side. Elena screamed, instinctively moving toward him before catching herself. Cole fell to one knee, his free hand pressed against the wound, his other still gripping his knife. I'll make this simple, Warren said, approaching with his gun trained on Cole's head. Surrender the woman and I'll kill you quickly. Resist and it gets unpleasant. Cole looked up at the Marauder leader, blood seeping between his fingers. Despite his injuries, his eyes remained clear and defiant. My gift is a curse, human, Elena suddenly called out, her voice breaking with emotion. Everything I touch dies. Warren turned toward her, eyebrow raised in amusement. Is that supposed to frighten me, girl? I've heard worse threats from children. Cole caught Elena's eye, a silent communication passing between them. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, then turned back to Warren. "Then touch me," Cole said, his voice steady despite his wounds. He released the rope connecting him to Elena and extended his hand toward Warren. "See for yourself." Warren laughed, shaking his head at what he perceived as a desperate ploy. "You take me for a fool." "Take me for a dying man," Cole replied. With nothing to lose, something in Cole's calm certainty gave Warren pause. He studied the older man, searching for the deception, finding none. His curiosity overrode his caution. "Hold him," he commanded his men, who moved forward to restrain Cole, forcing him to his knees. Warren approached, towering over the wounded man. "Last words, old-timer." Cole looked up, meeting the marauder's gaze without fear. "Just one question. You ever wonder why I carry this knife?" He nodded toward the hunting blade still clutched in his hand, a large, wicked-looking weapon with a peculiar oily sheen on its edge. Warren's eyes narrowed before he could respond. Cole moved with unexpected speed, not toward Warren but toward his own knife. With one swift motion, he drew the blade across his palm. Blood welled from the cut as he lunged forward, his bloodied hand outstretched toward Warren. The marauder leader jerked backward, avoiding Cole's touch, but in doing so, he stumbled into Elena, who had circled behind during the confrontation. Her hand brushed against Warren's exposed neck for just an instant. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Warren's body went rigid, his back arching unnaturally as the neurotoxin flooded his system. His eyes bulged, mouth opening in a silent scream. He collapsed to the ground, body convulsing violently before going still. The remaining marauders stared in shock at their fallen leader, then at Elena. Fear replaced confidence as they began to back away. "She killed him with a touch," one whispered, terror evident in his voice. "Demon," another muttered, already turning to flee. Within moments they were gone, scrambling out of the canyon in panic, leaving their dead behind. Elena rushed to Cole, who had collapsed against the canyon wall, blood pooling beneath him. "Don't touch me," he warned weakly as she approached. "Knife used your poison." Understanding dawned on Elena's face. "You coated your knife with my toxin. When?" "Last night while you slept." Cole's breathing was labored, his face pale from blood loss. "Cut myself to spread it. Would have worked on Warren too if he'd been closer. Why didn't you tell me?" "Wouldn't have agreed." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Stubborn." Elena looked helplessly at his wounds, unable to offer direct assistance. "You're bleeding too much. I need to help you, but I can't." Cole reached into his pack with trembling hands, removing bandages and a small skid of medical supplies. "Guide me," he instructed. "Tell me what to do." Under Elena's direction, Cole packed his gunshot wound as best he could, wrapping bandages tightly around his torso. The process was slow and agonizing, his strength fading with each passing minute. "Not going to make it to the cabin," he admitted once the bandaging was complete. "Not like this." "Don't say that," Elena insisted, tears streaming down her face. "We've come this far." Cole's eyes were growing distant, his breathing shallow. "Was never about reaching the cabin." "What do you mean?" "Needed you safe." He leaned his head back against the rock wall, conserving what little energy remained from them. From yourself. I don't understand. Cole's eyes found hers, clear despite his weakening condition. You were ready to die in that desert, give up, couldn't let that happen, he coughed, wincing at the pain it caused. Everyone deserves chance to live, even with curse. Elena sobbed openly now, the full weight of his sacrifice crashing down on her. Why, you didn't even know me. Knew enough. His voice was barely audible now. Saw someone worth saving. And now you're dying because of me. Aren't I? Cole shook his head slightly. Because of my choice, he reached toward her, stopping short of contact. Your turn now, choose to live, find way forward. Elena stared at his outstretched hand, hovering inches from her own. In that space between them lay an unbridgeable gulf, and yet somehow the closest connection she'd felt with another person in her entire life. I can't do this alone, she whispered. Not alone. Cole's eyes began to close, his strength failing. Take my supplies, map and pack. Coordinates to settlement. His voice faded to a whisper. People there who can help, doctor. Might find cure. Cole, please. Elena begged, watching helplessly as his life ebbed away. His eyes opened one last time, finding hers with surprising clarity. Remember, curse saved us both today, not all bad. With those words, Cole's eyes closed, his breathing growing more labored. Elena remained beside him, unable to touch him even in these final moments, tears falling freely as she watched the life fade from the man who had sacrificed everything for a stranger. As the sun of Hesperus reached its zenith, casting harsh light into the canyon, Cole's breathing suddenly changed, growing stronger rather than weaker. His eyes flickered open. Still here, he murmured, the ghost of a smile crossing his face. Cole, Elena exclaimed, hope surging through her. I thought you were not. Yet, he grimaced, shifting slightly against the rock wall. Survived worse. Elena wiped her tears, laughing despite the dire situation. You're the most stubborn man I've ever met. Has its advantages. Cole looked down at his bandaged side. Bullet passed through clean. Might live after all, if we can get you proper medical attention, Elena said, her mind already racing ahead. How far is the settlement you mentioned? 3 days, maybe 4 in this condition. Cole closed his eyes, briefly gathering strength. First need to reach my cabin, 1 day. Northeast, have supplies there. Medicine. Can you travel? Have to. Cole reached out for his pack, his movements weak but determined. Help me up. Elena guided him with words rather than touch, watching anxiously as he struggled to his feet. Cole swayed momentarily, then steadied himself against the canyon wall. Rope, he said, gesturing to the lifeline that had connected them throughout their journey. Need to retie it. Once the rope was secured between them, they began their slow progress out of the canyon. Cole leaned heavily on a makeshift staff, each step clearly causing him pain, but his face was set with determination. His eyes focused on the path ahead. The marauders might regroup, Elena warned as they emerged from the canyon. Once they realize Warren's dead. Power vacuum, Cole agreed. Chaos. Fighting among themselves buys us time. And GT snorts. And GT. They made their way across the rocky Terrain moving slowly but steadily. Cole navigated by landmarks invisible to Elena's untrained eye. A particular formation of rocks, a bent, cactus-like plant, the angle of the sun. Overhead, despite his injuries, his sense of direction remained unerring. We need to reach higher ground before dark, Cole said, gripping his makeshift staff as he surveyed the terrain ahead. There's a defensible position about an hour from here. Elena nodded, watching as he checked his bandages. His determination despite severe injuries impressed her. There was something about Cole that defied the cynical worldview she developed during her years in research. They continued their journey, the landscape gradually changing around them. The stark red desert gave way to more varied terrain, rocky outcroppings, interspersed with hardy vegetation. Occasionally, they spotted wildlife, blue fur creatures that watched them warily from a distance, having learned to avoid humans. By late afternoon, Cole's strength was failing again. His face had taken on a gray pallor, and his breathing had grown increasingly labored. Elena could see he was pushing himself beyond normal human endurance, driven by sheer force of will. We need to stop, she insisted as Cole stumbled for the third time in as many minutes. You're going to collapse if you keep this pace. Cole shook his head stubbornly, almost to the ridge, better position, safer. You won't make it to the ridge if you don't rest now. For a moment Elena thought he would argue further, but then his shoulders sagged slightly, a tacit acknowledgement of his limits. 15 minutes, he conceded, no more. They found shelter beneath an overhanging rock, Cole collapsing against the stone with barely controlled exhaustion. Elena checked his bandages from a distance, noting with alarm the fresh blood seeping through the fabric. The wound has reopened, she said. You're still losing blood. Cole nodded grimly, suspected as much. He reached into his pack, retrieving the last of their medical supplies. Need to rebandage, tighter this time. Under Elena's guidance, Cole redressed his wound, his hands shaking with fatigue. The process was slow and painful, but he endured it without complaint. That should hold, Elena said when they finished, but you need real medical attention, not field dressings. Cabin first, Cole insisted. Have better supplies there, antibiotics. Clears throat. Blood expanders might be enough. They rested in silence for a while, conserving energy for the journey ahead. The twin suns began their descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor. Soon the temperature would drop dramatically, adding cold to their list of challenges. Tell me about your cabin, Elena said, trying to keep Cole engaged and alert. How long have you lived there? 15 years, he replied, his voice stronger. After the rest, built it myself, stone and salvage. Good position, defensible near water. Zorza. Sounds like you were planning to stay. Nowhere else to go. Cole's expression softened slightly. Not bad life, quiet, self-sufficient, trade with Verdani sometimes. Medicinal plants for tools, knowledge for knowledge. You mentioned a doctor at the settlement. Would they help me with my condition? Cole nodded. Old friend, former company scientist, stayed when others left. Studies native biology now, smart, resourceful. If anyone can help, she can. She, Elena asked, surprised. Dr. Myra Koval, brilliant woman. Defected from company research division when she discovered their real plans for Hesperus. been helping the Verdani since. Cole shifted, checking his makeshift staff for stability. Time to move, ridge before dark. They resumed their journey, the terrain growing steeper as they approached the ridge. Cole moved with renewed determination, as if proximity to his home territory had given him additional strength. Elena followed, watching him with a mixture of admiration and concern. The ridge, when they reached it, offered a commanding view of the desert they had crossed. In the distance they could see the canyon where they had made their stand against Warren and his marauders. No pursuit was visible, suggesting Cole's prediction about internal conflict had been correct. There, Cole said, pointing to a distant cluster of rock formations. Cabins there, reach it tomorrow if we push. And the settlement beyond. 2 days more, less if we can get transport from the cabin, have old skimmer there might work. Cole surveyed the landscape with experienced eyes. Good place to camp tonight, defensible, hidden from below. They set up a simple camp in a natural depression near the ridge's edge. Cole showed Elena how to arrange rocks to block the wind while remaining invisible from the desert floor. Despite his injuries, his survival skills remained sharp. As night fell, the temperature plummeted. Cole built a small fire, carefully positioned to provide warmth without being visible from a distance. They huddled on opposite sides, the flames creating a natural barrier between them. The rope still connected them, a physical reminder of their unique circumstances. Tomorrow we reach the cabin, Cole said, his voice carrying a certainty that bolstered Elena's spirits. Then the settlement, then solutions. You really believe there's a cure for my condition? Elena asked, hope and skepticism warring in her voice. Believe in trying, Cole replied. Simply better than giving up. Elena nodded, understanding the wisdom in his approach. They had survived this far by focusing on the next step, the next challenge, rather than the overwhelming whole. Get some rest, Cole advised. I'll take first watch. You need rest more than I do, Elena protested, noting the exhaustion evident in his posture. Both need rest, both need watch. Cole settled himself against a rock, his bow across his lap. 2 hours, then your turn. Elena wanted to argue further, but recognized the logic in his plan. She wrapped herself in the emergency blanket from her ship, trying to find a comfortable position on the hard ground. Despite her physical discomfort, a strange sense of peace had settled over her. Not because their situation had improved dramatically, but because she was no longer alone in facing it. As she drifted towards sleep, her last conscious thought was of Cole's quiet determination, a force more powerful than any weapon they carried. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together, separate by a rope but united in purpose.